Welcome to Digitizing the Travel Experience. I'm David Meyer of the BTN Group. The business travel industry over the past many years has been moving toward greater automation and digitization. But while many of the steps of the process have been digitized, there still has not been a comprehensive digital transformation of the entire process. We had been moving in that direction, but then came COVID. And with it, the chaos and opportunity that the Chinese always knew were two ways of reading the same character. To help us understand what the current moment means to the digital transformation of the travel experience, I don't think we could have a more brilliant panel. So please, welcome from the other side of your screens, Susan Lichtenstein, founder of Digitravel Consulting, Evan Conweiser, Executive Vice President, Product and Strategy, American Express Global Business Travel, Jeroen van Velzen, CEO of Roadmap, and Norm Rose, President of Travel Tech Consulting. Welcome all. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Dave.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Please read the bios of Business Travel Hall of Famer Susan and the guys on the Business Travel Show app at your convenience. But we're now going to start off by hearing how each of them see the industry's progress in digitizing the travel experience so far and what remains to be done. And then we'll have time to answer some of your questions. So please feel free to ask questions through the Q&A area on your screen as they occur to you, and I'll ask your questions and some others I've prepared once they each have had a chance to tell their stories. This is the only area I'll look for your questions, so you're free to chat amongst yourselves using the chat during the session, but I won't be looking there for your questions, so make sure you put those on the Q&A. Thanks. So Susan, you've talked about the simplification and unbundling of processes necessary for digitization as unpeeling the onion. So please explain your metaphor and how to go about the unpeeling.
Yeah, thanks, David. So, over the years, corporate travel programs have created this very large onion with many, many, many layers on it. And when we go to change our programs, instead of looking at those layers and removing them and replacing them with, flattened, simplified layers that can be automated, straight, we just add. And every time we add a layer, we add cost because somebody has to help you manage those layers and somebody has to get through the mess. And I think, we all need to take a fresh look at that and say, how can I do this? How do I get started? That first step is the hardest step, to take an honest appraisal of your program. And in order to do that, it really would make sense to bring in the right people to your program, right? Go back inside your company, start having talks with people that have already flattened and digitized their processes, right? Go back to the business development teams, go back to HR, go back to IT, go back to your sales teams, to your procurement teams, and say, how can you help me simplify and flatten my program so I can take advantage of performing a better experience that's flat and simple and a straight line? So I think this is the perfect time to do this. COVID is a terrible thing. Travel's come to a stop. I understand all that. And, I started a whole community to address that. But today, by not traveling, you have an amazing opportunity to add companies like some are on this page into your programs without affecting the work that you're doing now, just approving it. This box that we're living in, the box that I lived in, I like to joke around and say, I joined the 12-step fellowship because I didn't realize what kind of a box I was in, and I needed to start a 12 Travel Anonymous fellowship just to figure out how to break out of this box we're in. And it starts with removing.
Are you referring to the box that Evan is in as well, Susan?
The box that Evan is in. Something like that, yeah. And I think the opportunity for boxes like Evan to help their customers break those layers down. And I know Evan's in love with Marketplace like I am. I think we both agree on that 100%. Marketplace is sexy and hot. I think the ability to break those layers down is in front of us right now. Not add things in not add more process, less process.
So I guess what you're saying is there's enough layers to make you cry with that onion, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's a little stinky at times.
So we've had that onion for quite some time, but now in the face of COVID-19, do we go about unpeeling it in a different way?
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to do is really do an honest assessment. And that means without the current structure you have now involved, you need to go back inside your world and maybe get some outside opinions on what has those many layers of process and what doesn't. Look for opportunities to remove those and flatten those. I mean, digitization by definition is a simplification of process. So if you remove the process, if you simplify it, if you automate where you can and connect directly where you can and look for those opportunities, I guarantee you'll improve the experience. There's no reason. The people tell me, why don't you do it today? I need to control the program. I need data. Today's world we live in, you can get 100% of your data no matter how they book. You can get it fed into your BI tool. You can include people into your system with virtual payment, virtual anything that you want. You can API in directly into your systems today. There are companies that pull data back and forth at time point of sale. You can't do that in the big box. You need to separate the big box, break it down, use your TMC when you need them, use your direct connection when it makes sense, and use a tool where it makes sense. Have it all, not some.
Excellent. So, Evan, do you share Susan's view?
Well, I agree with her that travel programs are very complex. I may disagree with her that I think that COVID has had a negative impact on our use of metaphors in the industry, but I think we can take that offline for later. There's no doubt that there's a lot of complexity. We'd like to talk about the reset. COVID is a reset. We've all pushed reset on business travel, and I think that has a big impact on where we go next. I think Susan had another great point about stakeholder engagement. We don't get an everyday opportunity to engage with CFO, CEO, chief risk officer, the business partners, the business leaders, the budget owners, right, who own the travel spend, and engage with them on what do you need and build a program up from what they need rather than try and break a program down from where we are and dealing with all that complexity. So certainly the ability right now during a COVID reset to simplify, to drive consistency and standards across a program, to drive out complexity and automate processes to drive out cost is really important. I think TMCs are trying to do that with our own stacks across all client bases. And I think individual clients, especially global clients, where there's a lot of global complexity that comes in, this is a great time to work with stakeholders on what you really need. Take out those processes that you don't need, automate the ones that can be made more simple or effective, and drive down cost and efficiency in a program. I think this is certainly a unique opportunity for us. And I think if we start travel again in the same way that we stopped it, I think we all agree that that's a missed opportunity in how we operate as a business. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen between now and hopefully, next month or even January. I think it's about kickstarting a process and an iterative improvement, continuous improvement cycle that allows programs to improve and get better over time. And I think TMCs are willing partners to help do this. I think that this is an opportunity that the industry overall, can tackle. And listen, suppliers as well, engaging in, we talk about digitizing the experience on an end-to-end, and that includes partnerships with suppliers, with third-party technology providers, with the whole ecosystem, and making sure that we're stitching together a solution that is more seamless and ultimately less complex. Complexity is ultimately the enemy of a lot of our actual goals that we try and accomplish.
So sticking with that sticky metaphor for a second, what's the industry to do once the onion's peeled, Evan? What are the digital experiences that we have to create or enable or accelerate in order to speed up the return to travel?
Yeah, well, I think going to your stakeholders and saying, what do you need? And we know all this already, a lot of it. So it's not starting from scratch. Traveler experience. I mean, Yaron and I go way back talking about the traveler experience. I'm sure he's going to talk about it, making sure we're looking at, what that traveler is from the time that they identify the need to travel, all the way through the time that expenses are filed and they've returned home. There's all sorts of processes there that, are they linked in the right way? Are they seamless in the right way? What do travelers need to be successful in their job, especially in a world where COVID may add additional types of stop gaps, additional types of gaps in that process? Is it safe to travel? What are the risks involved? Do I have the right visa or testing to do what I need to do? Do I have a destination to go to? Very things that we used to take for granted are now actually quite complex. So, trying to create the right experience from a travel standpoint is a well-trod path. But this is a great opportunity to go and fix some of those gaps in that process. And I think Susan brought up a great point on the data standpoint. So whether it's the travel management team, the CFO's office, procurement team, right? What actually do you need to make sure that you're continually improving and assessing the goals of your business through travel? That might mean linking data to other systems in an ERP environment to match it to sales. It may look at allocating budget in different ways to different stakeholders. It may involve a compliance check, right? Are people in the right country at the right time? And are we ensuring that they're safe, secure, and taxes and et cetera are all being paid in the right way? So there's all sorts of stakeholders that have needs at the travel program. Over time, I think, that has built up the onion, if you will, into sometimes, in some cases, a bit, something messier than it needed to be, and was built up before perhaps a lot of automation was available for us to simplify and automate those processes. So now is a great time for us to re-engage stakeholders, build up what they need forward. This is user-centric design thinking. It's not rocket science in a sense, but actually implementing it takes a lot of time and attention to map out these user stories and build up those processes. And COVID has given us an opportunity to maybe take the time to do that.
So you've been invoked, Jeroen. So did you want to talk about the traveler experience, as Evan said you would?
Nah.
No, I really like this discussion, obviously, because this is the whole sort of reason why we came to market 5 years ago. I also really like the metaphor of the onion, because I've been crying for 5 years that all of these processes, they suck, like big time, hardcore. I don't know what you guys have been doing for the past 40 years. And right, and we came here to break stuff, and now it's all broken, and now we get to see how we build this back up, right? And this is the major opportunity right here, right now. So I really loved it from that point of view. I hate what's going on in the world, etc. But this is a wake up call, and if it's a wake up call, you need to wake up. So and what do you wake up to? What is the reality that you want to wake up to? And that is what you're able to create right now. So
we're having trouble with your audio. Having trouble with your audio. So we'll let him recharge his battery there for a second. And Susan, my understanding is that while you concede that we have created tools for digitization, we still need to do a lot to digitize the travel process. So what needs to be done?
Yeah, I think you need to take a look at it all, right? I mean, when I hear Evan say, "Oh, well, we're going to roll it out. It's going to take time. It's going to take," that kind of rollout is how we got into this mess to begin with, right? It's here now. There is no reason. If 70% of your travelers, when we go back to travel, already know what airline they're going to fly, what hotel they're going to stay in, or what chain, what do they need a middleman for? If more than 70% of those guys are going to Google or some search engine to see where they want to go first and then go to their tool, oops, there's a problem here, right? So it's not just about the booking, though. People want control, duty of care. Guess what? Duty of care is not coming the way we need it to come today. And we know that from COVID. Get your duty of care at the point of sale, even if they book direct. Has anybody heard of a company called TrackZone? I'm not doing a commercial, but that's just the simplicity of it all, right? We have roadmap here. We have, the tools are there today. Why can't they work, right? I did a travel hackathon. That was so cool. And the reason why they can't work is they can't get in this box. They can't get through the layers, and they can't get through this box. This box is got, secret agents and police and FBI and CIA, and we've got to break that box, open it up, do the analysis in the areas like project management, data analysis, digital, booking, security, everything. Look for those opportunities, and then invite everybody over to the house to see which one is the right brick for your house. And if the box that we're in now gets smaller but more agile, good for them. Add value. Don't add fees for things like, oh, I'm going to answer the phone. Add value to creating a digital program for your customers.
So I think we have Jeroen back. Jeroen, where would you start the process at this point? No? Still don't have your sound? Damn.
My family wishes to. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you have my sound again?
I can hear you now.
Cool. Where do we start? We start with the traveler.
That's right.
And how? How do you start with a traveler?
So with understanding that his needs need to be met, and his or her needs need to be met through the business that they serve. And that is not through booking something. That's actually happening while they travel. And that's how you reverse engineer. So from an industry perspective, you reverse engineer it from the moment they start traveling, and not from the moment they start searching for something and booking something. So you start to understand how they travel, what their needs are, what their business needs are, and how you can simplify those needs, because that's when the money's being made. And that is when most value occur to the business. And then you see how you can basically get rid of all of these choices that have been created by policy, by process, by what have you guys invented over the past 40 years that we all need to get rid of. And that is happening while you travel. And then you take all of that data, you start to consume it, and then you rebuild your planning and your booking process, and then the expense, they get automatically disappear. That's sort of the goal that you should be after. And then every trip.
And we lost you again. But now we're going to go to Norm and get Norm's input on Norm, what do you see as the most important areas to focus on when it comes to digitizing travel? Oh no, you too?
Try refreshing.
There you go. That worked. Well. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks.
Yep.
Yes, please proceed.
All right. So I've been in the industry for 38 years, so I feel like I've contributed to the onion a bit here. Self.
We're losing you, Norm.
Shifting channels.
And nothing's on. We're going to let
Norm. I'd love to hear from the attendees. I hear a lot of, you can't do this when you travel, especially now with COVID. You can't do that when you travel. You can't do this when you travel. I'd love to hear from people to tell me, how do we change that you can't to you can, and I'll take care of getting the data and the things behind the scenes, which we could do today. But guess what? You can do this, and we've got your back, and we've got your risk, and we've got your safety, and we've got your data and savings.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes. No, we lost you again. Oh my God.
You can only hear him say, "Can you hear me now?"
That's
okay.
So Steve Clegg is out in the audience, and he's dying to get into the conversation because he's posted several questions. But one of them is, how do we get from a sea of point solution innovations to the dream of fully transformed, unified end-to-end experiences built on a whole new stack of efficient and profitable travel services? So, Evan, you want to respond to Steve?
That's a lot to unpack. So I think we talked a bit about starting with the user and making sure that we're building out from the user need forward. I think traveler back as the forefront of the primary user is absolutely continually need to be the direction we need to push. For too long, our industry was built on other needs, when the primacy should be focused on the traveler, since they're the one driving value for the business. So I think reasserting traveler where it's not in some programs as a critical need is absolutely important. And then other real needs from the compliance and risk. These are real needs. These are not things that can be dismissed, but I think to the point that was just made, they need to be factored into how do we get to yes, not all the no's. And I think, good compliance people and that we work with, and lawyers, just like lawyers, are all about what are the ways in which the answer can be yes, and not in all the various ways to say no, which we know a lot of people are experts at doing. So if we build up travel programs from the traveler need forward, how do I grow a business through travel? How do I ensure that my traveler has what they need on the road? How do I ensure then that other stakeholders have access to things like, I need to know how much we're spending on travel, because that's kind of important. And I need to know how to interact with my airline partners. Therefore, that's kind of important. And I need to make sure that people aren't safe or breaking the law when traveling. That's kind of important. And we build out programs from the need forward. I think we can get there. And the reality is, as much as we like to make this industry sometimes the punching bag, some things actually work reasonably well. We're able to get people on their mobile phone to book a trip, and then, within a few hours, get on a plane and travel across the world, and then check into a hotel, without even stopping at the front desk. It's not all bad, right? So I do think we've been working really hard on innovating and getting this industry in the right way. But I think, as Steve points out, there's still a dream where we have more automation and there's not manual processes in the back end. We don't need armies of outsourced folks all over the world, just going through queues of reconciliation and collecting invoices and doing, commission reconciliation and all the things that we know happen to make data work for large corporations. So I think there's opportunity for sure. We want travelers to be able to interact with suppliers better so they can, do disruption management in a much more seamless way than we have today. We want to make sure that, their needs are linked to the hotel, so the hotel identifies traveler by not just, their individual and who they work for perhaps, but also who they are as what they need and what their trip purpose is and what kind of meals they're going to want and what local information is going to be important to them. And certainly in a time of COVID, we want information around the safety of local environments and rules and regs to be at everybody's fingertips. So, we're on this journey. I think, the easiest way to do it is just focus your attention as much as possible on the stakeholder in need, map out that need as simply as possible, and then stop thinking that we can build from complexity backwards, but rebuild from simple outward. I think, every industry has been disrupted by companies that do that, and programs and people and individuals that do that well. And I'd love to see us continue on that path.
So, Jeroen, the green light's on. I think you can talk. Tell us what you think about that, because that question was targeted at you.
Yeah, I hope I can speak for more than 2 minutes, because then the Chinese cut me off again, because we're being hijacked here by people that want us to travel.
I think this is the biggest commercial for travel I've ever seen, to be perfectly honest.
I'm thinking the same thing.
Did I say I miss you guys all, really? Because I need a group hug right now.
So Jeroen, how do we get from the point solution innovation area to this dream of this unified end-to-end experiences?
Well, it needs to start with cojones, right? So that's how the Spanish called it. It's not a Dutch word, but it is something you have to get out of your comfort box, to steal Susan Box analogy here, right? Because the comfort is I just go call Evan and I said I chose Amex GBT, and I will wait for his marketing department to promise me something that Evan is never going to build, but I will buy the marketing decision, and then I just wait till it never gets there.
Yeah, I cut him off for saying that. For the last 2 or 3 years, I've owned both product and marketing at Amex GBT, and there's a reason behind that. Because typically that's the way big companies operate, but we have to change that paradigm. Your product and marketing are the same thing, right? Your marketing is the product you have in the marketplace, and your product is only as good as the way you tell stories around it. So I appreciate the dig, Jeroen, and in the spirit of.
I gotta hold you to the fire on this one, Evan, because we've talked over the last 6 years. Some cool stuff's come out of the development side of your house. Cool stuff. I still don't see it yet. But at the end of the day, if we're thinking about the traveler first, if I want to get data to those different departments, dumping in a BI tool directly at the point of sale, most companies, if not all of them, have great systems in place and data analysis in place, and they deliver it in an internal or intra-data feed. I don't need to wait 30 days for data. I don't need to wait 60 if it's global. I don't need to wait at all anymore for data. I don't need to wait for a marketplace. It's here today. When I'm on the road and I need information, I can get it right from my supplier today. I don't need to wait to January to start this. It should be started yesterday. Right now.
I understand a lot of that's available today, Susan. A lot of that's available. Book data is available.
I totally agree with you. So I don't need an I don't need a third party to guide that. I can do that directly inside of my company.
Hey, why are you stealing my point? So I got this great question from
you can't talk
from
for more
Ben.
than a minute.
Finally, my audio is working, and then the two of you start chatting again. So if you would let me finish, Evan, because I was starting a sentence, and obviously I stepped on a.
I'm going to do it again. This is the easiest pal I've ever had. The guy just starts talking and then he stops.
Once this happens.
Oh, this is frustrating. I'm very frustrated for you, Jeroen, because we can't hear you. Well, Norm, why don't you try to get into this then? No, you can't either. Okay. What the hell? All right.
BTN says BT. Is that the right one?
Yeah, you're back. Go ahead.
My VPN says MXGBT. Is that a right one?
It must be the one that's working.
Okay.
It's funny you say that because I'm on the internet and you're not. So what ups?
What?
Shoot.
Can we try it again? I tried to refresh. Can you hear me?
Go
He's
ahead,
in New
Norm.
York now. Be careful.
Norm, every time you say, can we hear you? We hear you, and then we can't hear you after that.
Okay, I don't know what the story is with
This
that.
is why we need to travel.
It's one of the many reasons why we need to travel,
Mm.
but it is one.
Listen, look at the companies that are mid-sized. They are going to lead the way to the golden light. I think about Suzanne Boyan, our running travel manager of the year. She took a look at her program and said, what the hell is this? Right? Easily simplified it, made a determination that she has smart people in her company. She empowers them to book directly with the right suppliers. She uses a travel company when she needs it for those difficult reservations. Even I would want one for those reservations in multiple countries with the visa needs, et cetera, VIPs. Then she gets her data directly dumped into a BI tool, and she's able to add companies like Roadmap or whatever she wants along the way, every second of the way. She doesn't have out-of-managed policy people. There's no such thing in those companies that are doing it. No such thing. She has 100% visibility using a company like Traxo to every transaction that happens at the point of sale. Not many people can say that. And it didn't take forever.
As long as you're not worried about paying lowest price, as long as you're worried about taking travelers while they're on the road.
Now that's crap, right? Because
you're fighting open bookings from 5 years ago.
My corporate rate, that's bullshit. Sorry, BTN. Because every corporation can now get their corporate rate directly from a hotel by putting it in their profile.
What about agency rate? What about agency rate?
My corporate discount. And low cost carriers, you're hitting me for $40 on a fee, and I don't need that. So that's crap.
Let's give Evan a chance to respond.
Okay, good.
No, listen. Agencies procure rate programs because they drive value for middle market customers. They can't negotiate their own rates, and that provides a ton of value. It's not just about the rate; it's also about the benefit of that rate, that perk. Now, obviously, change fees are going away, but things like fee waivers, things like perks that come with that rate that provide benefit for travelers. That's a huge part of what an agency does. That's one thing, and then there's duty of care. Listen. If you want to let your travelers book things, then wherever they want to book, I think you're missing an opportunity to provide for them. A travel agency is not a bad thing. It's a dirty word in our business, but it's not usually a dirty word because travel agencies actually help travelers and provide value. So listen, I don't think this needs to be a debate about booking channel. I think that was fought and honestly mostly decided a few years ago. I think that's a battle 5 years ago. But I do think getting data together, making it easy to read from any source, making it real time. I think, Susan, you said before, I think there's a tons of things that we can do to simplify programs and provide value. And you're right. Having, we provide our data to Roadmap, right, through a fast API connection that allows our joint clients to have that service. Absolutely. Marketplace of data for ideas. These are really important concepts. And these are one of the many ways that we're going to get to that Steve's utopia, where I forget the word he used, but Steve's word is having a marketplace of ideas and a marketplace of data in order to power those solutions. And some of those are durable for the long term. Some of them are, we see some startups come and shake things up and then leave. That's not Roadmap, but others. And that's not bad either, right? Those are ways that we need to innovate and adopt and change together as an industry, and having open API endpoints to do that allow us to do that. But we also have, Susan, I think, your point from the beginning, I really love, which is, stakeholder engagement to simplify. Travel managers have not been able to simplify programs because there's a feeling or a real thing at a business that they're not allowed to, because their processes are beholden to other stakeholders and they can't really shake things up enough because they're moving the program along and not shaking it up, right? And I think this idea of they're in the room now, there's not a lot of travel right now, it's time to relook at your program and shake it up a bit, a lot more from the ground up versus the top down. And I think from a digitization standpoint, that's really, to me, the singular message to take away, I think, hopefully from our conversation is, there's never been a better time.
I agree. And I love your marketplace, Evan. Let's be clear. I would love to do it with you. I love it.
So, Jeroen, you've got a green light. Go ahead, talk.
Yay.
You believe it.
So, what I want to say is one thing to Evan, because he needs a hug, right? So he's in the bitching basement right now. And I think, in all honesty, what Amex has been doing and opening up, and we have very good conversations how we can integrate, because what I think and what I hope will continue to happen beyond COVID is that TMCs understand you can't be good at everything, right? So there is a place for everyone in this market. And this is where open APIs get in. And this is stitching that experience together. And obviously, there are also new TMCs that think they can do that all together. And I wish them a lot of fun. And they should raise some more money and throw it at some more marketing events, because that won't happen as well, right? So, and this is fun for the buyers, because you get this red pill, blue pill decision. So either you start to own your shit and you want to build it yourself and see how you can turn this best of breed program, as Susan describes it, or you go to the Navy for the past 40 years and then complain about it at conferences and then dance the night away.
Absolutely.
Like the part, yeah.
I agree, Jeroen. And I also think, very candidly, right, TMCs, if they could afford to do it last year, they can't afford to do it this year, right? Like, the TMCs are not interested in doing it all themselves. And those that thought they were a couple years ago, I think, are facing the harsh reality, probably even some of the new entrants, even if they're venture capital subsidized. But, the business does not exist to pay for a lot of that today. And I think, many ways, Jeroen, that may stimulate more innovation in the industry by opening up more willingness to partner, across the board on various things that other people thought they may have wanted to do themselves. And, some of that may be suboptimal, some of it may be optimal. So I there's silver linings to every disruptive period. And I think, while, I don't think anybody, thinks that what we're going through right now is anything other than devastating, we
Right.
got to pull on to whatever silver linings we can and pull it out. And I know, listen, I'm literally in the basement of my parents' house under quarantine, because I was in Florida for 6 months, and now I have to quarantine for 2 weeks before going back to my apartment. And, I'm not quarantining with 2 toddlers in my apartment. So, that's the nature of our world today. It's a sad, pathetic world that we're living in, that we're dealing with, not being able to hug Jeroen in person, but have to deal with, trying to get him to speak, on this system. So I think we can all agree, but I do think there's an innovation ecosystem here that, if we can find the way to fund it, candidly, because a lot of investors are getting a little bit nervous about business travel. And I think we, as an industry, and it comes to buyers, by the way, buyers, you have to get out and tell the marketplace that your travelers are going to travel when they can again, right? Every article that says, I'm going to take my people off the road and send them home for forever and eternity because this bullshit works, is $1 less into business travel ecosystem by some venture capitalist that pulls that article and puts it in an investment memo to tell their partners to stay the hell away. Right? That's garbage, people. We know we're going to get back on the road. So we need to champion this industry. A world of less travel is an inferior world. And yes, we have to do it sustainably and safely. But as an industry, we got to do this together as well.
So
I completely agree with you. I built a community called
Before you continue, Susan, we've got a question from the audience, from a buyer who says, with a desire to make big changes or try in their program, how can a travel manager win approval? So that goes directly to what you were talking about in the op-ed in BTN Daily today. So please.
Yeah. So this is an amazing opportunity for everybody, right? You're very, very critical in your company right now. In places where you might have been sitting 3 or 4 steps down, having to go through 4 or 5 layers, there's those layers again, to get to your CEO, CFO desk, to get to those executives, they're calling upon you now to sit at those tables because, Evan, to your point, when are they going to travel again? How much are they going to travel? Where are they going to travel? How do we get that information to them? So this is just such a great time for you to really take a look at your program that you have now, and not only put your duty of care first, because it is devastating, and put that duty of care first and look at how can I get that information, why they're traveling. Thank you, Jeroen, because that's so important, right? So how to get that information when they're on the road, but also what can we do to improve that experience for our company? I guarantee you that if you put together the right plan, one step at a time, starting with that assessment and looking at what you really need help with, what you really can connect directly, and what you can really do to remove those layers, your company has already done that, especially now in every other area. I guarantee you, your company is now connecting and communicating with their customers virtually, digitally, automatic, digital payments, removing obstacles. They're doing it. You can be a leader in your company to show that something that's the 3rd largest indirect spend in your company has that room to grow and change. And you don't have to do it alone. You can get help for that. So that first step is so critical.
And can you break it down for those folks who don't have clout of a big company, people from a smaller company where they don't have the deep pockets of the IT departments that can be used for internal administrative initiatives? How can they get to the point where they can be empowered?
Yeah. So first you want to make sure that you want to look at everything in your company that's around data, that's around sales, that's around digital, that's around strategy. And then you want to take a good look at your work inside your company and peers and think to yourself, okay, what areas do I have that I have manual intervention? What areas do I have that are not directly connected to a supplier? What areas do I have that I'm not digitally connecting my data directly and not waiting for it? So things that are really, really obvious. Then bring in teams like security, risk, and HR. How do I make our people happier, right? There's there's some companies with many less employees in it. Like, how do we take advantage, make sure that the people that are left are getting that experience they need to be safe and trusted? How do you get 100% of your data no matter what happens, right? So once you start looking and answering those questions, which are really simple to answer, lay it out flat on the table, so to speak, right? Lay those processes out flat and look at all the obstacles that avoid you from being directly connected to anything you want to do, pre-trip, actual trip, post-trip, right? You will find many areas very quickly that will meet the objectives of your company strategy, your revenue strategy, that you can remove. Chase that low-hanging fruit. Remove those ones that are so obvious. Get rid of that low-hanging fruit. Think of that traveler. It's not so much when they get to the airport anymore. It's what happens when they land. Right? If I'm landing and I don't know what to do or something goes wrong, who am I calling? Who's going to help me? Who's going to get me home again? I was in Europe when this all started. I didn't know if I was going to get home or be like Evan, stuck in a place that I didn't know, that was strange to me, that I wasn't home with my family. So let's just pay attention to the things that are important and think about why you're paying 30% too much for your travel. What can you do with that money? And I guarantee if you go to the CFO and say, hey, here's some money back. Hey, by the way, if I connect directly, I'm going to be able to renegotiate 20% savings. Hey, by the way, if I connect directly, I'm going to be able to get better visibility into my customers or those guys who aren't connecting directly, which you'll never get to go through a program. These guys, I can pull them back in with their data, not with their experience. So, take a look at that low-hanging fruit. Take that first step, sit back in your chair and go, get a hammer, get a box, break it, and then have some fun. This is fun. If you're not having fun, call me. Have some fun. This is an opportunity that you haven't had before.
So, Jeroen, we're going to attempt it one more time. Steve Clegg says your model of stitching it all together is creating a Frankenstein. And is that really the most successful path forward? Do we need better surgeons so the stitches and scars don't show?
Well, if Steve knows, because he has this beautiful lady that he's dancing with, and that's certainly not Frankenstein because it's the MS Travel app. So that is stitched together using a beautiful experience and a beautiful interface. So it can be done, and that's certainly not a Frankenstein. If you think about that, right, the best interface is no interface, right? So then it just magically happens. That is the ultimate goal. So intermediate.
Okay, Norm, you try. You try, Norm.
As soon as I start talking, right? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Norm and me are in a
You'd think this was a comedy routine if you didn't know better.
I know.
It dropped off.
We're going to have to make good for Norm and
Sitcom reality show.
So Steve Mandelbaum asks, won't some business travel never come back, Evan?
Yes.
Evan?
Certainly, listen, business travel for the age of time is all about optimizing the trips you have to take and the trips you don't have to take. So that will continue. So I like, that always happens, right? So I think what will happen is you'll see a switch towards higher value business travel. And I think business travel will come back and there'll be a good focus on what trips should be taken. From a volume standpoint, I think the demand is so strong that it will come back, and then some. But is it going to be some trips will be replaced by other trips? I mean, I think but that's just the nature of the evolution of anything a company needs or wants to build their business. Is you're always iterating on where you're spending money and how you can spend it more optimally and how you can do that. So I guess the answer is sort of yes, but I want to be careful to caveat, business travel is a driver of growth for companies. And, the virtual thing certainly works for some lower value interactions. And if we can replace some lower value interactions with virtual, substitutes, I think that's good for everybody. I don't think a low value business trip is good for the industry, right? I mean, I think we want high value trips. So I think what this will help us do is really sort out high value versus low value. And I think as we go to as a potentially more remote model, as industries look for more virtual sourcing of talent, I think you're going to create, a long-term more need for business travel as people want to get together to collaborate. If they're not in the office every day, then they still need to collaborate from time to time to build relationships. But I also think, generally speaking, be very wary of looking at pandemic accommodation as things that are going to last or should last, post-pandemic, right? Like it's like people that are like, oh, everybody switched to online grocery, so therefore online grocery must be the best thing ever. Well, you know what? Online grocery has a place and it will grow, but it is not the best thing ever. Some people like to pick out their produce, and I want to go pick out my produce, and I miss picking out my produce. And so some of that's going to go away. So just because it was a business, a pandemic accommodation, it doesn't mean it's perfect. I mean, you look at these articles and it's absolutely crazy that some people think that a pandemic accommodation is good. It's like, yes, I didn't buy my shoes at the shoe store. I wasn't physically allowed into a shoe store for 4 months, so I didn't buy my shoes in a shoe store. But normally, I don't mind the shoe store. So long story short, business travel will come back. Trips will shift, I think, a bit towards higher value trips. I think that's an opportunity for us as an industry to up our game, provide link to value better, show where relationships have value. And I actually think there's a lot of pent-up demand for business travel that, if we were to have a vaccine quickly deployed, I think you'd see a relatively quick snapback as people realize that, there are a lot of relationship building that they missed out on. But this is going to be this is going to be a process, and certainly not an overnight thing.
So leave it to Evan to take us back to produce and the onion. So Susan, can you, we've got a question.
Yeah.
Susan, we've got a question that says, can you tell me more about aggregating data through multiple channels, such as booking through a TMC as well as direct or through an aggregator?
Yeah. So guys, and I'm going to use an example. I don't know what tool you have, but if you have a tool like Power BI in your company, a data feed is not something that's unusual today. It's unusual in corporate travel. The CEO of Procter & Gamble said, I can't remember where he said it, but he said, I can look at, they have many, 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 many companies that they look at data. He says he can look at the sales data of his company, the major, all the companies together in 2 hours. In order to look at travels data, it takes 30 days. He said, what's wrong with this? And this is a guy who owns like 1,000 companies, right? So all I'm saying is work with your suppliers to get a feed directly into your BI tool. You probably have some really smart people in your company that know what to do with that data. They already have an internal, in my last firm, they already had this cool intra system where people went to one place to look at all their data, including travel and cost and spend and security and risk. Just put it in there and let them analyze it. Let them take the raw data, trust and empower them to be smart people. And you don't have to worry about aggregating it. Now, there are many companies today that aggregate the travel data because we have it so badly. We've had to build companies to do that. So there are companies that do that today. And if you don't have it inside your company, there are a ton of data companies today. I know Eric's a friend of mine that can take your data, that can create a data lake, a travel data lake. And if you don't know what that is, we can do it offline. And you can put the data in your lake, so to speak, and go fishing for what you need out of that lake when you need it, and leave it there for analysis. And I'm sure Amex and TMCs have that ability to do that too for a data lake. So cool stuff happening now to get your data in one place.
But of course, there's always been a problem with consistency of the data and the quality of the data. So you have to be very careful about where you're taking that data from.
Wow. So, wouldn't it be great though if you could have that raw data at the point of sale and not wait for somebody to filter through it? That would be pretty amazing. That if you could have the data, like, when I buy something or even a ticket online directly, I get my data back immediately. what I did. So, it's one of those areas that definitely need improving.
Evan, you want to talk to that?
Well, listen, I mean, Susan's exactly right. You can get a data feed of what was booked very easily and aggregate it in. I think, and certainly that is a tool, whether it's a TMC doing it or a third party doing it or your own company doing it. I think there's ways to do it. I don't think we're here to do a referendum on the value prop of buying through various channels. Like, we can get into that, in a different session. But I think it's easy to aggregate data, from the point of sale. I think the challenge is when, there's changes and cancellations. The challenge is when you're adding in what kind of data. The challenge is how you're looking at that data. The challenge is how you're taking care of travelers who are making that booking. The challenge is understanding that the rate that you paid is the best rate in the marketplace. The challenge is making sure that the fee schedules on that data are included. The challenge is looking at all the folio invoice data and making sure that is coming through. So you look at total cost of trip. The challenge is marrying that to compliance. The challenge is marrying that to policy. The challenge is making sure that travelers are profiled based on their hierarchy and who they report to and who the approval flows are. The challenges are making sure that you have the right liquidity and making sure that you're expense managing it appropriately. The challenges are making sure the travelers have no issue with expensing that because it's booked through a compliant channel. The challenges are using that to negotiate with suppliers to make sure you're getting the best rate. The challenges are making sure that nobody is going to an environment where they're not allowed to get into the border because of COVID regulations. So, our business is here to solve tough challenges. They're tough. Let's not mistake them. Let's make them simpler. Sometimes they're not as tough as we think they are. Sometimes they can be simpler and less complex. Sometimes we need to be more open with various partners in the ecosystem to help our customers do that. Sometimes we need to go to stakeholders and simplify things. And I think, digitizing the travel experience is all about that. And if we use Reset as an opportunity, we can definitely make progress on a lot of these fronts and do some things that we've tried to do but failed in the past.
We're over time here, but I want to give Norm one last chance to try to get a word in edgewise. Give it a shot, Norm.
I'll try. I think the most important thing is think about what you can digitize at your company. We talked a lot about the TMC and whether the TMC is needed. We need
Well, that was a really good point. Unfortunately,
It's a very good point.
And Susan, you've actually digitized at your company, at your previous company. So can you give us
some areas we did, in some areas we could have done a better job, but I'm sure they're doing a much better job now.
So it's a process.
It is a process, guys, but you can't just take that first step. Let's do it together. Take that first step. Don't be afraid to drink that Heineken and look at your program from a view that you haven't looked at it before. It's okay. Take the first step. It's going to be okay. I promise. It's going to be okay.
Jeroen, try to get a last word in.
No, I won't. I just smile and be pretty and have some fun.
I don't think this was useful. It was very entertaining.
Well, I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties, but I am thrilled with the input that we did get. And so we thank so much for your insights, Susan, Evan, and your efforts to give us insights, Jeroen and Norm. I think you did give us some, even though we didn't get full thoughts from you. Since the audience can't applaud, we ask instead that all of you out there complete the short survey to evaluate this session. Either access the handout icon or wait a moment. Your first comment will be, audio sucked. When you're done, please join us in the exhibit hall or in the lounge to do some networking until 4 o'clock Eastern. Thanks so much.
Stay tuned for the Netflix version. Bye, everybody.
Take
All right,
care. Be
so
safe out
frustrating,
there.
everybody.
Get on the road
Bye,
soon.
guys. Nice seeing you all. Bye, Ed. Bye, Norm. Bye, Jeroen. Bye, David.
Bye-bye. Take